This next section is going to be a new paradigm for most of you. I know that you're used to me giving you new paradigms, right? That's kind of my hallmark. So this is not going to be any different, but what we're going to be challenging you to do in these next two sessions with lesson number 2 is begin to look at how did God solve this problem of man, his creation made in his image, not at rest, but in the cosmos, right? And God wanting them desperately to be at rest under his authority, working the way they were supposed to be working originally. It's a dilemma. So given this set of circumstances and this problem that God has, it reminds me of a 1991 movie. And what's fun, usually when I teach, I try and get a 1980s reference in, just as a standard. And so I was close, 1991. But there was a movie in 1991 called Grand Canyon. And I don't suspect that anybody remembers it. But you can Google this scene. It's called the tow truck scene from Grand Canyon movie. The reason I'm not showing it, it's got some racy, colorful language in it. So just be aware. But I'm going to give you the premise of the scene, and I'm going to tie it into where we are in our study. Danny Glover is one of the actors, and Danny Glover and Kevin Kline are in the opening scene of the movie. Kevin Kline is driving his car through a section of town that is a little unsavory. It's got some people that might do him some harm. But he's fine because his car's working. But all of a sudden his car stops working and he pulls off to the side of the road, and it's early car phone days, so it's not a cell phone, but it's a car phone. And he calls the tow truck, and they say, stay with your car, guy will be there shortly. In the meantime, some people from the neighborhood come by and they want to say hello. And they're not as friendly as they could be. And so they stop and they have him get out of his car, and you get the sense from the scene that something's about to go down. He's either about to get his car stolen or maybe even possibly lose his life. And just about that time, Danny Glover drives up in his tow truck. And he drives and he parallel parks, and then he backs up and he just starts hooking the car up to his tow truck without saying anything to anybody. And the guys that had stopped talking to Kevin Kline say, what's going on here? And he doesn't really answer him. But then when he gets the car hooked up, he pulls kind of the ringleader aside, and he said, you got to let me go my way here. I've got, this car is now hooked up to my truck, and it's my responsibility. And then he says something profound, and I wrote it down. He says, man, the world ain't supposed to work this way. I mean, maybe you don't know it, but this isn't the way it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be able to do my job without asking you if I can. That dude, Kevin Kline, that dude is supposed to be able to wait with his car without you ripping him off. And he says, everything's supposed to be different than it is. And it's a profound scene, okay? Danny Glover's obviously comes in like the, knight in shining armor. He's kind of a Christ figure in this salvation of this man in the story. And he talks the guy into it. They end up driving away. That scene reminds me of the situation that God found himself in. After the cosmos had been ordered, after functional rule had been set up, and after sin entered the picture, there's a bunch of people walking around on earth, and they didn't know that this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And so what God did, in a Danny Glover kind of way, is he decides to tell people. And so the question is, how is he going to tell people? How did he choose to tell people that this isn't the way it's supposed to be? He plans on giving them reminders. Reminders of what? Well, he wants to give the whole of creation reminders, and in that he's saying, creation, maybe you don't understand it this way, but this isn't the way it's supposed to be. this pain and toil that you're experiencing. You were meant to be in your place and doing your thing, but something's got in the way of that, and everything's supposed to be different than what it is. That's what God's trying to say, and he does it through reminders, and we see it first. This wasn't in your lesson, but we see it first in Genesis 12, 1 and 2, when he picks Abraham out of the crowd, the world stage. He picks Abram, and he says to Abram, now go forth, leave where you are, and I'll show you a place to be, a land. And I'm going to make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing, and I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. This is the first promise given to the patriarch Abram. He later becomes Abraham, and he sets out on his own for a land. Well, what is that land going to end up being? We know from our lesson this week, it was one of the last questions, right? When the people eventually get into the land, what happens? What's it called? What's it referred to? It's referred to as a land of rest. It's a land, what we're supposed to say, it's not that they were lying in hammocks, right? It's a land where the people within that land were functioning the way they were supposed to function, trusting God, following his rules, and being blessed, right? They were supposed to be this little oasis in the world that not only a witness to themselves, but a witness to the rest of the world of, hey, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like this, right? So Abraham dies. He doesn't experience the little oasis idea. His descendants end up in Egypt as slaves. Now think about this theologically for a second. Slavery is the most dysfunctional type of work that a human can do. What was happening in Eden? God had given people a place to be and a thing to do, and they were following God's direction. Then they decided, the fall was man deciding for himself, I'm going to do what I want to do. That was exit out of rest. What's slavery? Slavery is when a man, a human, takes the place of God and decides what another human is going to do for work. This is the most dysfunctional picture of the cosmos that it could be, and it's out of that God rescues Abraham's descendants, and he begins this insertion of reminders into this group of people as they come out of Egypt. And that's what we're going to cover in the next session.